Hey, sports fans. This is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes. I wanted to hop on real quick tonight and do a quick video doing predictions for the top four teams in the ACC, teams that I think are the top four teams in the ACC, the teams they play, what games they will win, what games I think they will lose, and their final regular season record at the end of this 2024 season. The first conference I want to do is the ACC, and those four teams that I think are in the top up echelon of the ACC is number four, North Carolina State, number three, Clemson, number two, Florida State, and I'm predicting that Miami will be the number one team in the ACC. So first, let me start off with North Carolina State. Their first game is against Western Carolina. Win all day. NC State will pummel them and beat them convincingly. Game number two, Tennessee. That's an L for NC State. I believe Tennessee will bring a physicality that North Carolina State isn't ready for, along with a spread out offense where they're going to be throwing the ball down the field over North Carolina State's head. So I think North Carolina State loses game number two. Their third game is against Louisiana Tech. That's a win. I believe NC State will do them the same way they did Western Carolina in game one and beat them handily. Their fourth game is at Clemson. That's an L. Clemson, I think, is going to be on a revenge tour this year to try to get back on top, and I think they're going to beat NC State by at least 10. So that's two L's, two wins for NC State so far. Game number five is Northern Illinois. I think they beat Northern Illinois, even though Northern Illinois is going to have some talent on their team, but just not enough to beat NC State. So that's three wins for NC State so far to two losses. The next game is against Wake Forest. I believe that'll be a good game as well, but I believe that NC State will pull out the victory against Wake Forest. The next game is against Syracuse, and I believe they will beat Syracuse as well because that game is at home, along with that game against Wake Forest is at home. And I think they'll win both of those games. The next game is at California. Another game I believe that they will win, even though they will be tested going out on the West Coast. They will be tested in that game, but I do believe they will squeak out a victory against California. The next game is Stanford, but they got Stanford at home, which means Stanford has to travel all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast to play North Carolina, or we're into the Midwest. And I think that uh, North Carolina State beats Stanford in that game. I think it'll be a solid game. It won't be a tough contest, but I think it'll be a good contest. But I think NC State wins that game against Stanford. The next game is Duke, and I believe they're going to beat Duke at NC State. Even though I think Duke is going to be able to hang with them, it's going to be a victory that is won in the fourth quarter. But I do think NC State will win that game. The next game is against Georgia Tech, and I do believe they will beat Georgia Tech as well. So, with that being said, the last game they play is against North Carolina, a rivalry game. And I'm pulling for my man, Mac Brown. Please pull this win out, Mac Brown. So I'm thinking that North Carolina is going to beat North Carolina State in that rivalry game. And in the end of the season, North Carolina State will be 9-3 and the fourth best team in the ACC, in my opinion. The next team I want to cover is Clemson. Clemson's first game is at Georgia. Let's not even waste no time. L. Even though they're going to be juiced up for that game and ready to go, I think Georgia's physicality and their talent all over the board, 2 and 3 deep, is going to be too much for Clemson to handle. Quick L for Clemson. The next game is against Appalachian State. And we all know that Appalachian States get up for all their big games and they give you a heck of a contest. And if Clemson isn't careful, if they are still licking their wounds from losing to Georgia, Appalachian State will come into Clemson and beat them. I think it's going to be a close game because Clemson's going to have a hangover from Georgia, but they will pull out that victory and beat Appalachian State. Their next game, like I said earlier, is against NC State, and I got them beating NC State. Their next game is against Stanford, and I think they're going to beat Stanford because Stanford's going to have to come onto the East Coast again and play against Clemson, who I think by this time will found their groove and will run off a series of wins until they get to Florida State at Florida State. And I believe Florida State will win this game. I think it will be a back and forth matchup. Defense is going to be key in this game, and I think that Florida State will have a better defense and pull out this win in the fourth quarter. So I'm taking Florida State. Their next game is against Wake Forest in Wake Forest, but that's no big deal. Clemson will go down and beat Wake Forest pretty handily and come out with another victory. Their next game is against Virginia, another team that I think they'll handle easily and win against Virginia at home. And they get Louisville at home as well, another team that got tore up in the transfer portal. They lost so many key players in the transfer portal that I think that Clemson will manhandle them and beat them as well. Their next game is at Virginia Tech, another team that I think that they will beat, even though I think Virginia Tech will get them a good fight in the beginning, but in the end, Clemson will pull that victory out by double digits. Their next game is at Pitt, another game that I feel like they will win very easily. I know Pitt will probably play good in the first quarter, probably keep the score close, but the last 3 quarters they're probably gonna get handled. Once once Clemson figures out what they need to do to go ahead and get these guys off the field. And their next game is going to be a wipeout against the Citadel. Yeah, they're going to stop a mud hole in the Citadel. It ain't even going to be right how they're going to do them in this tune-up game for their rivalry game against South Carolina, the last game of the season. And I believe they will win that game as well. Even though it's a rivalry game, emotions are going to be high. The first half is probably going to be good, but after that, it's over with. They don't have Spencer Rattler at the quarterback position to help them out, so they're probably going down pretty handily in that game against Clemson. And I got Clemson finishing the season 10-2, and the third best team in the ACC. The next team I want to cover is the team that I think will finish second place in the ACC, and that's the Florida State Seminoles. Homie Kenny Bosley, homie Desmond Townsend, please don't, and John Mickens, please don't be upset with your brother. But I do believe that y'all going to be the second best team this year in the ACC. I'm going to tell you the games you're going to lose, and I'm going to tell you the games I believe you're going to win. First game, Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. Definitely going to get the win there. I hope that travel to Dublin, Ireland does not affect the two teams to the point where the game is sloppy and weak, like some of those NFL games be. I hope that these games overseas are still going to be competitive games where we give those fans in those other countries a good contest and a good showing of how American football is played. So hopefully that game is a good game and that those players aren't jet lagged or whatever from making that trip over to Dublin, Ireland. The next game that Florida State plays is against Boston College, and I think that's another win Even though Boston College tends to play some of their opponents in the upper echelon pretty well, I think they'll probably hang for the first half, but in the second half, it'll be all Florida State. Their next game is against Memphis, and I think that they'll beat Memphis pretty handily as well. Even though Memphis will get them a good fight in the first quarter to a quarter and a half, but then I think Florida State will figure out what they need to do to put these guys away. Their next game is against California, but it's at home. So that means California has to travel all the way across the country, 3,000 miles, to play the Florida State Seminoles. And it's probably going to be ugly. They'll probably beat them by 20 or more points in that game. The next game is at SMU. This game is going to be scary for Florida State. They better come with their A game because SMU will score some points. And if Florida State isn't careful, if they come in slumbering, SMU can beat them. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Florida State is going to figure it out by the fourth quarter, dust off whatever it is they got to dust off in that fourth quarter to beat SMU by at least a score or more. Their next game is against Clemson, which I believe they will beat Clemson because Clemson got to come to their crib, and I don't think Clemson is going to be able to pull out that win. I think Florida State will get them in the fourth quarter. Their next game is at Duke. By this time, Malik Murphy should be settled into that quarterback position, and he should be dropping bombs. And if Florida State's defensive secondary is not careful, Malik Murphy will throw bombs on you all day. His arm is extremely strong and he is extremely accurate on the deep ball. He probably still needs to work on his intermediate game and short game, but his long ball is unbelievable. And if you don't believe me, go and watch a few of those games last year that he played in that he pulled out victories for Texas against Kansas State. And I believe the other game was TCU. Go check. No, it wasn't TCU. It was Kansas State and BYU. Go and watch those games because Malik Murphy can throw that deep ball. And if Florida State isn't careful, he will throw it over their head for some big time scores. But I do think Florida State will keep that under control and win that game against Duke. Their next game is with the Miami Hurricanes. And they got the Miami Hurricanes at home, I believe. So it's a game that they could definitely win, but I think that Miami outlasts them in the fourth quarter and either scores a game-winning touchdown or kicks a game-winning field goal to beat Florida State and give them their first loss of the season. Their next game is against North Carolina, a game that I think that they'll win pretty easily. I love my man Mac Brown, but I don't think his North Carolina Tar Heels is of the caliber of the Florida State Seminoles. Their next game is at Notre Dame. Listen, by this time, both teams are going to have some injuries. They're probably going to have some guys that are coming in as the second string, third string players having to play in this game. And I think that Notre Dame is going to pull out the victory in South Bend to hand Florida State their second loss of the season. Sorry, Kenny. Sorry, Dez. Sorry, John Mickens. But I think that'll be your second loss of the season. Their next game is against Charleston Southern. Blowout. They're going to be highly upset about that loss to Notre Dame, and they're going to probably kill Charleston Southern by 50. And their last game is against Florida. A Florida team by this point is probably going to be banged up. They're going to be physically beaten down so tough that they're probably going to be rolling out their second string players in a lot of positions because they have a rough, grueling schedule. The good thing about this is that they're going to be able to have their second and third string players getting a lot of playing time, which is going to make them very, very good in the 2025 season. So look for Florida to be very good in 2025. But I got Florida State beating that game against Florida and finishing the season 10-2 and the second best team in the ACC. The team that I think is going to finish first in the ACC is the Miami Hurricanes. The U! I really believe that my man Justin Geiger and Kevin Thomas, Miami Hurricanes, are going to end, and my brother Tim Muhammad, I believe that their Miami Hurricanes is going to be on top of the ACC this year, and I believe that they're going to beat Florida, Florida A&M, Ball State, Southern Florida, South Florida, Virginia Tech, California, Louisville, Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. Now, I said on the earlier video that I don't think anybody is going undefeated. But if somebody's going to go undefeated, it's probably going to be in the ACC or the Big 12. One of those two conferences has the best chance of having an undefeated team. And I'm predicting that Miami can go undefeated. They'll probably lose one or two, but I'm predicting that they're going to go undefeated against my better judgment because I really don't think in this age of college football that we're going to see many more undefeated teams. We're going to see a lot more one-loss and two-loss teams possibly winning college football championships, national championships. But I'm glad I got a chance to cover my four top teams in the ACC. I'm very thankful to you all for supporting the channel. We actually made it to 100 subscribers. That is awesome. That was our goal for our first week, was to make it to 100 subscribers. Now we want to try to make it to 200 subscribers, and you can help us subscribers by telling your friends and family members to please support WTP Sports Dudes. Log in to YouTube, go to the search engine, type in WTP Sports Dudes, and hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell so that you can get notifications. We want to grow our channel so that we can continue to bring you good content. Without any further delay, I want to thank you again and hook 'em.